it's not the super soldiers that you imagine. It's not Captain America. It's very gritty. It's ongoing medical treatments. It's pain and unpleasantness and in labs being very mistreated. And it's trauma and hurt with a fair dose of dark humor as well, because why wouldn't you make that funny, apparently? So, yeah.
It's very, very dark humour, isn't it?
Very dark humor. Yes. The kind of humor I really want people to laugh and then feel very uncomfortable about the fact that they just laughed.
Hello and welcome to this special interview for FanFiAddict. I'm Frasier Armitage, sci-fi writer and reviewer for FanFiAddict.com. And joining me today is the creative team behind the absolutely fantastic sci-fi audio drama, The Dex Legacy. We have the creator of the show, Emily Inkpen. Hello, Emily. How are you doing?
Hello, I am very well, thank you. And you?
Awesome, thank you. We also have the producer of the show from the Alternative Stories and Fake Realities podcast, Chris Gregory. Hi, Chris. How's things with you?
Evening, Frasier. I'm good, thank you. Survived Monday, so that's really important.
Yep.
Yeah, it's always a win. If you can survive Monday, you're winning.
It's all downhill.
We're here to talk,
or uphill.
Yeah. We're here tonight to talk about The Dex Legacy, which is a popular, critically acclaimed sci-fi audio drama. And Emily, you're the creative mastermind behind it. So I guess it's only fair that you tell us about it. So for anybody who's watching who doesn't know, what's The Dex Legacy?
Oh, this is a fun beginning.
Start you out with a really easy one, yeah?
Yes, indeed. Okay, so The Dex Legacy is a sci-fi audio drama. It's set on a seed planet, so it's being colonized by ancestors about 1,500 years before the story begins. It's set in a country called Dex Island, basically a weapons manufacturer called Nathaniel Dex. He bought an island, moved his company there, declared it a country in its own right, and himself president, as you do. And he has children, adopted children. He gives them to his pet scientists to turn into super soldiers. So it's kind of a political sort of examination of munitions sort of trade around the world, with a sort of layer of super soldier kind of story over the top of this, except it's not the super soldiers that you imagine. It's not Captain America. It's very gritty. It's ongoing medical treatments. It's pain and unpleasantness and in labs being very mistreated. And it's trauma and hurt with a fair dose of dark humor as well, because why wouldn't you make that funny, apparently? So, yeah.
It's very, very dark humour, isn't it?
Very dark humour, yes. The kind of humour I really want people to laugh and then feel very uncomfortable about the fact that they just laughed.
And I think you achieved that perfectly. It's and I don't think I could have summed up the Dex Legacy so concisely, because there is so much to this world and to these characters and to this story that you're telling here. That to have been able to do it in like less than half an hour is an achievement. It's absolutely brilliant. Chris, what was your first impression of this world?
That's an interesting one, actually. It's quite a while ago now. The story goes that I was aware of Emily from her Twitter presence, and I was looking for content for the Alternative Stories podcast, and so we had a conversation which we were running over a couple of days ago, actually, weren't we, Emily?
Yeah.
This conversation, and we, first of all, we discovered a shared love of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is always a good starting point, I think, for any friendship or relationship. But it's important to add that the Dex Legacy is nothing like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But it was a good starting point because that was a great radio series before it was anything else. But the universe of the Dex Legacy is it's a tough world. I mean, so I think possibly my first impression was it was actually in some ways quite similar to our own world, and some of the things that are happening on SP714. Emily's already mentioned a corporation basically becoming a country. I mean, it's not happened yet, but you could kind of see that in the next, let's say, 50 years, possibly less.
Oh,
And
much less, I can
all
imagine.
right,
Yeah,
5.
probably 5. Yeah.
And President Bezos will be the one. But I think also some of the and again, Emily's mentioned this, the super soldier stuff, the genetic modification, the messing around with what it is to be human, certainly the physical aspects of what it is to be human, in order to gain advantage on the battlefield or in politics or wherever. So I thought right from the get-go, I thought there was some really important and interesting issues that the story was dealing with. But that makes it sound very kind of philosophical and worthy, and something that you'd sort of stroke your beard over and think about what Heidegger would have said about it. Whereas there are also funny bits. There is a love story running underneath the main plot. There are battle scenes. There is action, and all sorts of other stuff. All human life, or SP714 life, is here. And so I think the abiding thing that was that the world was so well written. And
Yeah.
I think Emily is absolutely hit it out of the park, really, both on the scripts for the audio drama, but also on her novels, which I've had the good fortune to read,
Oh,
which are
you both
based on the
have.
same world. Yes.
Yeah,
So
it's
yes, just very, very well written and brilliantly imagined, I think.
yeah. I have to agree, Chris, about Emily's writing. It is fantastic, and the thing that I like about it is that you've got these huge concepts about the world, which is great for sci-fi and fans of sci-fi, but that's not really the main thing that's driving the plot and the story. Or it's so character driven, and these characters
Mhm.
feel so real. And that's true in the audio drama too. It's so character driven. Um, what I want to know, Emily, is where did the initial spark and the idea for these characters come from?
Well, I mean, I always say the characters have been with me since I was about 15, and that's pretty accurate. Um, I got really, really into sort of watching video game cutscenes and things, and I was really into my drawing of sort of like manga and stuff at the time, and I got into drawing these characters. Over the years, they evolved a lot, and all of them took on different like personas of different things, and they were always sort of messing around in the back of my head and sort of clattering around in there and being noisy, but there was no sort of like something needed to fall into place. And then finally it was the love interest that did it, and I was laying upstairs on my exercise mat, not exercising. uh, I was meant to be, but I was not. I was procrastinating instead. And suddenly I realized, I was like, oh, she wouldn't be with them at all. She'd be with this one instead. And then suddenly it was like a line of dominoes just fell and the world just happened and the story opened out. And it was like, it was one of those moments. I was like, and yeah, it was from there, it was like a frenzy of writing. But these characters have been with me for like 15 years, easily evolving and becoming. And I think that's why they're so real and so complete, because they've been with me for so long. They are literally just part of me. And I could imagine, like, I could, if, to the point that they're part of me, to the point that they're not based on, like, visually, they're not based on a celebrity. I can see them in my head, but nobody looks like them. That they are complete individuals, and they've completely fabricated and become real in my brain. Um, so yeah, very real. But one of the weirdest things actually about doing the audio drama was hearing their voices outside my head for the first time. Because when you've got them inside your head for so long, and then suddenly you've got these characters who have been in you, out of you, if that makes sense, and they're on the outside and they're talking to you, and it's like, it's, yeah, it never gets old.
And I had to watch Emily go through that moment that some writers cope well with and some don't, of relinquishing control of the characters. Because when you write audio drama, you know this as well, Frasier. We were talking about this in an interview the other day, weren't we? I was interviewing you. But where you hand a script over to actors, they take the script to places that you never imagined it going.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's a real test of a writer. And I remember you saying initially, Emily, when we were listening to the auditions, so when we audition, we'll do a very few lines, but we'll get several actors to do them. So you're listening back over and over and over again to these same lines. And you said to me, I don't like it. I don't like hearing my lines said so many times by different voices. And I thought that was really interesting. And I thought, this is it. We're never going to make this thing right from the outset. But then there was a kind of settling down moment and a relinquishing of control moment. And it all went rather well from there, I think.
I think it's
It's okay.
sort of
Yeah.
blossomed. Yeah. I would
Blossom.
I would
Yes.
I would say that the like, I think the important bit there is the fact that the novels obviously came first, but the novels are set 11 years after the audio drama. So because the audio drama isn't like is I'm not giving control to actors, um, control of moments that happen in the novels. I'm writing these moments years before, and as a result, I trust the actors to sort of bring that to life. It's not like they're recreating something that is so concrete in my mind. It's a much more malleable moment in the story, and yeah, as a result, I can be much more chill about it, and I really enjoy it because actors, they're so talented, and they do these things, and they say the lines and they do things you don't expect, and you're like, no, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect, and yeah, I love it.
I guess that's really good, really comforting for people who are listening to this who haven't written a word yet, but they've imagined characters in their head for so long. Because I think that's where writing starts, doesn't it? It doesn't start when you start typing, it starts when you begin imagining. So for all those
That's
writers
a
who are
very good
watching,
point.
who are who are thinking, "Oh, I haven't got any words down," don't worry. Story's still, it's just brewing. It's all good. You've mentioned
Yeah.
some of like the voice actors, and that was a question I wanted to ask you, Chris, about casting, because the voices just seem to be absolutely perfect. And the amazing thing about it is you have so many of them, because this is not a small ensemble, is it? This is a huge cast. So, how did you go about casting, and how did you get it so right?
Well, thank you for saying we got it right. I completely agree with you that now it would be impossible to imagine any other voice of Ren, for example, um, and certainly of Osa. Annika Cordes is just the best. But you don't know that you're going to get it right from the outset, and things take a while to settle down. Um, One of the things about audio drama is, and certainly with a lot of voices in the same drama, you can't have two voices that are too similar, because without the visuals, without the audience member being able to say, okay, that voice is quite similar to that one, but he's 6'4" and blonde, and this guy is 5'4" and dark haired. So you don't have any of those clues. So the voice is everything. So I think one of the first challenges is not to cast people that have very similar voices. So that's one thing. But casting, we did that. I mean, we now co-direct, and everything we do, we do kind of as a team, really. Apart from the writing, there's a dotted line marked writing, and I'm not allowed to go beyond that.
That is not true. That is not true.
We've had conversations. but in terms of casting and directing, it is true. We did all the casting together as we did Frasier for Postcards from Another World, actually, because the writer knows better than I do what they envisaged for characters. So it's really important that the writer's involved in that casting process, and equally, I think, as we've discovered, also in the direction. So the writer knows how they envisage characters behaving in any given situation. So if I have access to the writer, which I do in this case, it would be crazy of me not to employ said writer as part of the directing team. So yes, we do everything on the creative side together. And but as Emily's alluded to, there is very much this sense that the actors have a degree of autonomy to interpret as they will. Sometimes they'll say, well, how about if I do a line like this? And we'll usually say, yes, that's great. Carry on. And it's usually great. So yeah, I mean, it's a I'm not a dictatorial director by any means, and nor is Emily. I play a dictator in the story, but I'm not a dictatorial. This side of the microphone, I'm not a dictator.
Yeah, because you both are cast in this. So Chris, you play Nathaniel Dex, and Emily, you play Otto. What's it like, sort of acting and having a share in it as well? Is it nice to be a part of the ensemble?
Should we do that incredibly English thing where I say, Emily, we've done this before, actually. Emily, you go first.
But after you done, yeah.
No, I insist.
I mean, it's weird being in it. I mean, what's funny about Otto is that we came up with her as just a cameo for me, and it's very functional. So sort of instead of having like a ring of a phone, we need something to indicate a call coming through. So having the robot to say, incoming call, things like that. And
it's like she was in the room there for a moment, wasn't it?
Like, landing protocols initiated and things like that, so that you can see if they're in a transport, they are coming into land without someone saying, "Oh, look, we are now descending towards the airfield," which would be like silly. So AutoCADE was supposed to be like a very sort of plain kind of monotone sort of tool almost. And then she started to evolve, and she became interesting, and she started to have opinions, and it all sort of tied in with OSA sort of creating this AI, but kind of expecting to have control over her. But she gave this AI access to all of the seed data, which is basically a comprehensive record of everything that was ever written or produced on Earth, and then packaged up and sent with settlers to this new planet. And Otto has access to all of this. So it's a huge amount of information, and she starts processing it. And then, of course, she starts applying certain bits of information to other bits. So she starts creating kind of opinions about things, and opinions that are about things that are happening on Dex Island. And all of that started to happen. It was happening as we were creating the series. And so it's very strange now because I guess I've evolved from tool to like a full blown character, and that is very strange. It wasn't intentional, but yeah, she got away from me a bit. I think now it's really intimidating because we're winding up. Like now, I'm like I've got to act scenes with professional actors, and that's terrifying. And I can only blame myself because I brought this on myself. I wrote it. I can't blame anyone else.
I feel similarly, actually. I mean, all the clues were there that a character named Dex in a audio drama called The Dex Legacy was probably going to be quite important. And because we were only going to make one episode initially, I thought, well, I'll do it. I'll do it. And of course, now we're one season deep and about to go into a second. And this is quite an important character. And we didn't want to change actor midway through. So I'm kind of doing it, but I do have anxieties about acting with really, really good professional actors. And yeah, it is rather scary when you look at the acting reels of some of our cast, and Charlie, for example, who plays Ren. If you go to his video reel on his actor page, he's there in a scene with Anna Maxwell Martin, who's in Line of Duty and Motherland and things like that. And you think, gosh, these are proper actors. They're really proper professional
Yeah,
actors.
they're not pretend ones.
He's just finished a year in the West End, for example, and Emily, I think you're going to get to do a scene with him in a few weeks, aren't you?
A really
Yeah,
heavy scene.
yeah.
A
So good
really,
luck with
really
that.
heavy
No, that's
scene,
going
yeah.
to be great.
It's gonna be great for you, safely in the booth, not doing anything. I'm gonna be there trying. Also, the problem with writing a robot is that robots don't have to breathe. So, you kind of have to stay on the level and try to not have too many breaks for breathing while you're doing it. And so I've got to inject emotion and nuance while also thinking this is the problem, is thinking, oh my god, I'm running out of air, I'm running out of air, I'm running out of air, just trying to get to the end of the line and not pass out. And yeah, so that's a whole other thing. It's like not only have I got to act, but I've also got to breathe. And
I-
yeah, ideally.
I'm sure that because actors have a thing about writers and writers have a thing about actors, don't they? We view them as superstars, and they look at us and they think, wow, they've created these characters and they view us as the superstars. It's a really lovely symbiosis that goes on with that. So I'm sure that you'll get there and all the actors will be like, wow, look, it's Emily, and look, it's Chris. It's like, what? We get to act with these guys. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, they don't
Okay.
usually have such high opinions of directors, though. So
Yeah, well, yeah.
have
I'm
to be a
sure.
bit careful.
I can't wait for you guys to yeah. You'll have to come back and tell us all about your experiences with what it's like. With regards to the writing, Emily, I just want to ask you a question about the dark, because
Oh
you've
yeah.
really you've released a short story which is called The Dark, which is set before the events in the Dex Legacy. I just wanted to know whether that was helpful to you when it came to writing the audio drama, because The Dark has all those things you talked about earlier. It's funny, it's emotional, it's action packed, it's got love story, it is dark. It's got all of these things going on. Was it helpful in like finding the tone and the balance?
I think it was an important story to tell, if nothing else, because in episode 1 of the Dex Legacy, The Bomb, it is mentioned that Ren has been captured and tortured. Um, and his fingers hurt because the people who tortured him stuck electrical probes up his fingers and then basically burnt his fingers from the inside out. Really nasty. And they did this for, a good couple of days. Bless him. And I suppose I really wanted to tell that story, and sort of because it's almost like a root moment. All of them get captured when they're in the Dominos Mountains, which is where they are during that conflict. And those moments of capture sort of define them later on, because these kids, they're institutionalized. They have been raised in the sort of the headquarters of Dex Industries, the lab, and the training quad, and they have existed within those 3 points their entire lives. And apart from very controlled and very controlled sort of excursions. So apart from that, all very institutionalized, and then they're deployed to this conflict region, and it's sort of like a liberation for them in many ways, but also for the first time they are fighting a real enemy, and they learn quickly what it's like to be fighting real people who are fighting back and who are very serious about fighting back, have a lot at stake. And and it's vicious, what's done to them and what they then learn to do back. And that is an absolutely crucial part of their sort of development as kids, because they're only 15 and 16 when they go out on this on this deployment. So learning then that they are out in the world is not very nice. And it's not very nice to them in a targeted way, because they are so overpowered in comparison to other people. The damage they can sort of execute on an enemy force is extraordinary. And so the enemy naturally goes for them to try and eliminate them. And this is not something they necessarily saw coming. They sort of see it as a lot of fun and games. Like, yay, we've been training to do this thing all these years. Now look at us go. We're really good at it. And then, oh, we're really good at it. And they know. And now we have to be really good at it, or horrible things are going to happen to us. So it's a very essential part of their development. And obviously in episode 2, we see Isra being captured. So it's sort of the second big capture, and that event is a huge event and changes them, especially changes Ren and Isra and obviously Varian as well. So yeah, I had to tell Ren's story, I suppose, as a route, and cover that event as the first event of, this sort of, these people are going to try and hurt us, and they're going to succeed. And yeah, what are we going to do about that?
Yeah, that's really good. And you can, for anybody who goes and reads it or has already read it, you'll see what a perfect introduction to this world is, and how it ties into the audio drama so well. There's little Easter eggs through the audio drama that you can spot back as you're listening. So for those who have enjoyed the audio drama and aren't aware of the dark, go and check it out. And for those who want to check out the dark, it's your perfect way of sort of, as a reader, experiencing this world before you then experience the audio drama.
Yeah.
Chris,
There's also an Easter egg. I'll just say there's an Easter egg from the dark at the end of the trilogy. So in book 3, right in the future of the kids, there's a whole Easter egg that refers back to that short story as well. So, I'm just that much of a nerd. I just tie all of these things all the way through.
It's all interconnected.
It is. Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah, I'm trying to think back to what it was now, but we'll have to talk about it off camera so that we, I don't spoil like all of your trilogy.
No spoilers.
Yeah. Chris, the soundscape of science fiction is a very specific one. And yet in the Dex Legacy, you do such a brilliant job of grounding it in real things. I'm thinking about when Nathaniel's giving his speech, or, when they're in the club in an interlude, the kids, or, where you're on like ships like Angel City. It doesn't sound sort of like, pew, pew, pew. It sounds grounded and real. Was that intentional?
Well, Emily's smiling because there's an anecdote
There are so many
there's always an
anecdotes linked to
anecdote.
what you just said.
But while I was doing the sound design for all the episodes of series 1, I would often, myself and Emily, have a WhatsApp group, and can it be a group if there's only 2 of you? Anyway, we have this WhatsApp conversation which pretty much pings off all the time, and the most common question I was asking was, in your world, what is the tech level of? And it began with guns. So and it's, it's not a million miles in from where we are with our technology here on Earth now. So there are 1 or 2 pulse weapons, which I guess are, what you might think of being a little bit more sci-fi, and they make a slightly different noise. But a lot of the time, it's guns, it's cannon, aircraft are small jets, or even prop-driven aircraft. Transports they can hover a bit, but they're not a million miles from the sort of things you might expect to see on Earth now. So making it very specific was all about consulting Emily on tech levels. But there was the one scene that I think you just referred to about the homecoming, where the kids are returning from battle and Nathaniel's put on a welcoming party. And I was thinking, well, they're returning as kind of military heroes. What would a military homecoming sound like? And I thought, well, if it were here on Earth, there would be some sort of military marching band. And so Emily got this weird WhatsApp message saying, what is the tech level of military bands in your world? I mean, and so are we talking like people marching with synthesizers and things like that, or are we talking bugles, trumpets, horns, as you would be here? And I think that was the only time I've ever not got an immediate response back, to which I kind of imagine you've not thought of that, have you? I've finally beaten Emily Inkpen on a question about her world.
It's
And I
those
took
moments
some
where
grim satisfaction from that, actually.
You put in the thing. It's like, some music, please. And when I wrote that direction, I was thinking, God, I hope he knows. I hope he's going to come up with some music. And then I got to this question, and I was like, oh God, okay, right. And I hadn't thought about that at all. But yeah, we got around it, and you did some brassy things. It works. It's it's good.
I also did a sort of techno dance track, which I wrote for the episode in the nightclub as well. So I was trying to imagine what the slightly dancey music of this alternative world would be like. So I imagined it would be fairly similar to ours, and wrote something accordingly.
My favourite soundtrack, like background sounds in Dex, are the tea, when they're in the library drinking tea.
Yes.
And this one is like, it's become a running joke. Chris at some point said to me when mixing one of the episodes, like, for a high-tech, high concept science fiction, a lot of the action happens in a library drinking tea. And it became a running joke. It's always the morning meetings. Nathaniel comes in, asks Otto, what are the headlines? Otto reels off the headlines. So it gives a sort of, this is where we're at in the story kind of thing. And they're drinking tea because it's morning. Of course they're drinking tea. And, and then they have their morning meeting as the founders of Dex Island. And this is all just perfectly natural. But of course, it's very boring. It's very normal. It's very recognizable. But at the same time, of course, they're drinking tea. And Chris and I, we've talked about what Nathaniel Dex's tea trolley would look like, and potentially what that whole tea experience would be. But at the same time, you're not going to get away from the fact that sugar needs to be stirred.
So teaspoons in cups. I think my initial, because I did that off script initially, almost as a kind of slightly tongue in cheek thing, because as a sound designer,
was it you?
No, I did it, and then it was always written in the directions after that. So I did it, because as a sound designer, the last thing you want is a scene with nothing in the background. So I thought, well, you get a bit twitchy. It's like I need to do some sound design here, otherwise it's just two blokes talking in a room. So I thought, well, okay, they're drinking tea. So I found a nice little tea stirring and pouring sound, put it in, thinking Emily's just going to tell me to take that out straight away. And she didn't. She
Oh
loved
no.
it. And so now every time we have a
Every
scene in the library,
episode.
every library scene begins int library, which means interior of library, brackets T, close brackets, which, so I have to put a T effect in there. So, yeah.
There's actually some scenes in the library of season 2 where things are very tense, and we were going through all of the scenes, and it's like, is this a tea scene? And no, it's not a tea scene. They would not be drinking tea. Things are much too serious for tea. And then we got a bit further on in the story, and then it was like, I think this one might be a tea scene. And it was like, yes, we can reintroduce the tea at this
We
point.
did talk about him chucking a teacup at someone.
Yeah,
At
he
one
does.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is the implements are there, but they're just not drinking the tea.
It's angry when a teacup gets broken in my stories.
Because they're going to be really good. I mean, for Nathaniel, they're going to be really good teacups.
Yeah.
You're looking at
Optimized.
30 quid a piece, I would say, at least.
At least.
Bone china. Sorry, have we lost you, Emily?
That was unexpected. I didn't think we'd be putting a John Lewis price tag on a teacup.
There's so many production meetings end in this way, Frasier.
Oh my goodness. I think we worked out that the teapot would be sitting on one of Osa's perpetual generators to keep it warm.
Absolutely,
like it would just have
yeah.
this little, just sound, if you can pick up on that, just to put the teapot on top.
Do not adjust your sets, listeners.
And then, I mean, you say that things are the sort of same as in the UK, but I mean, obviously, part of that is the kind of sound effects that we have available are, you've got to think that in Earth terms, a high tech air transport is not something that people have necessarily gone out and recorded, and brought back to a sound library. So yeah, but I mean, the transports themselves, there's only so many ways you can get troops from A to B. Okay, and a big flying transport is a good sort of staple. I think everyone can get on board with that, can't they? It's
And they sound great when they land, don't they?
Totally great, especially when Auto says initiating landing protocols.
Yeah. And then there are other sounds that are very much, Earth sounds that would be familiar to anyone, such as a neck break, for example. So there is a degree of violence in this show, I should add, but we needed to recreate someone's neck being broken.
They don't have that.
It's not a family show. So we usually access these audio libraries, and we couldn't find the sound of an actual neck being broken.
It was I was really, really surprised about it, and then I thought, oh no, wait, that would actually be horrifically disturbing.
Not even the BBC have got that. So again, this was another WhatsApp conversation one Saturday morning. Because normally if I can't find it in an online sound library, I will try and recreate it. But this seemed trickier than average to recreate the sound of a neck being broken, and I couldn't find any volunteers to actually have their neck broken and me record it while they do it. So we turned to vegetables in the end, and I think it was a combination of snapping a carrot and tearing a pepper, which and this WhatsApp conversation involved little recordings of vegetables being abused, being pinged over to Emily, and her going, "No, too squidgy," or "No, too
wet,
too sharp. There'd be an element of crunch there. And I was thinking, God, if this WhatsApp conversation is ever intercepted, we could both go to jail for quite a long time.
It's the carrot. Like what you want to do is you got to imagine that somebody. Maybe I shouldn't go into detail with this, but they're like sort of pulling and twisting at the same time. So there's got to be like a tension that you can hear there. But it's never going to be like a squelch, like when you sent me the recording of the courgette.
The strawberry was.
Or,
the courgette.
Yes. The courgette was just too.
I don't know what I was thinking of,
that's
frankly.
more like an intestines kind of sound. I mean, we'll bring out the courgette later for that, but for the neck, it was the carrot, because it has just this nice little squeak to it before it goes. So it's like it's in strain, and I was like, that's perfect, but we need a little bit of damp kind of, and that's where the pepper came in. But peppers are not so wet that it sounds like intestines. It's not.
Have you finished now, Emily? Listeners who left at the start of that can now rejoin.
So sorry, but just in case you're worried and or you're interested in recreating the sound of bone snapping, can recommend carrot as your base source for that sound.
Also for research, please watch Toby Jones' film Berberian Sound Studio if you haven't already, which is all about film special effects or sound effects guy. Brilliant film, and it taught me everything I know.
Everybody is going to come away from this going straight to their veg drawer, and they're going to start snapping them. You're going to get viewers saying like, "Oh yeah, the carrot and the pepper. I hear it. It's great." With regard to
mic placement's important as well.
Yeah. with regard to the success of season 1, so it's a top 5% podcast of most listened to. You've had over 60,000 downloads. Did you ever expect that it would take off the way that it has done?
Me? Okay, no. Well, I had no idea what to expect. I was just having a lovely time, and it was just lovely to bring it to life. And I think when you're in it, you're so focused on just getting something out into the world, and then sort of promoting it. And it is a constant job. Like, it hasn't happened by magic. Like, we are constantly promoting it, talking to people, getting it featured, nurturing relationships, sort of, constantly doing updates, releasing bonus episodes and things like that to keep numbers ticking in. It hasn't happened by magic. So I guess my answer would be, I didn't expect it, but we've worked for it. I think that would be my thing.
Yeah. And it had a slow start. I mean, as podcasts tend to, actually. You've got fewer episodes out when you first set off. So even if someone absolutely loves it, if there's only 4 episodes to listen to, the chances are they're just going to listen to 4 episodes. When you've got a whole series out and someone finds it and loves it, they've got 14 to listen to, and they do. And so the numbers grow the more episodes you have out there. But even given that, I think it was a slow start. And I think there were a couple of quite tense meetings where we said, no one's listening. Don't panic. No one's listening. Don't panic. And but then it just started. We get all these stats, and one of the lovely ones is a sort of wiggly diagram of who's listening on which days. And suddenly, towards the end of the series, actually, that line just kept going up and up and up and up. And then we had an even bigger leap, a huge leap, round about the start of January, actually. And yeah, so it's organic. You get featured on other podcasts. You talk about other podcasts, the way an author would promote a book, really. It's all, helping out other podcasters, because we love so many audio dramas, and it's quite a community actually. And Apple Podcasts will have you listed under listeners also listen to, and you find yourself under other podcasts, and you think, oh, okay, that's good. And suddenly it just starts to take off, and then it creates this momentum. But yeah, it can be very disheartening when you first start off, and only 20 people listen in a day or something.
But I mean, I would say that, have we ever had a day of 0 listens since
No,
launching? I mean, like, yeah,
no,
okay,
because
early
I
on.
would have gone to live in a cave covered by an old duvet and never emerged again.
But I mean, that's like every day. For me as a writer, that means that's every day somebody listening to my words. So,
Well,
you know,
about 20 every hour
I
at the
mean,
moment,
now,
if not more.
yes, but back then, even 20 in a day, that's
Mm,
20 people listening to my words every day, 20 people more than would have been
mm,
otherwise. And so even those 20 people were kind of like blowing my mind
mm,
back then. And now, yeah, we've got like 20 people an hour. And that's, even more lovely. And that's a terrifying thought for me, is that right now in the world, people are listening to the Dex Legacy as we speak while
mm.
we're talking about this, probably on
Yeah,
average,
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
multiple
There
people.
will be. Yeah.
And that's terrifying and also wonderful at the same time. And yeah, like,
Well, that was another thing that we kind of observed, wasn't it? That so Charlie, again, Wren from the Dex Legacy, was in this play in the West End, and even when they packed out the theatre in the West End, which the West End is pretty much always packed out every day, he was being heard by more people in the Dex Legacy every day than were watching him on stage in the West End of London every day, which was, I think, it blew his mind actually. And when we were thinking about it, we were like, that's really weird. That's really odd. So
yeah,
yeah.
we're working very hard on making them famous,
Mm,
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as season 2 goes, from what I understand, the scripts are written and the actors are on board. And if you get your Kickstarter funded, then it can go ahead. So, what can you tell us about season 2, besides the fact that it will feature tea?
Or not. And you've got to look out for the scenes where it doesn't feature, because that's significant. The lack of tea means a lot. No, it's going to be more about tea or lack thereof. It's a lot of. I mean, the season 1 ended on a cliffhanger, a big cliffhanger, and season 2 picks up from that moment. We will hear that line said again, and then what is said directly afterwards by the characters around. And so it really does follow hot on the heels. And it's this sort of journey. It runs from there, sometimes quite literally. And it's, oh gosh, it's really hard answering this question without spoiling things.
mm. Well,
Um,
let's say also that there are characters in season 2 that are much more important than they were in season 1. So,
yeah.
for example, if anyone's listened to season 1, and actually the bonus episode that we released called The International Confederation introduced 2 characters who were pretty much the main characters in that one, called Kit and Valentina, who are Dex agents. Um, and Dex agents do some dark things, Frasier.
Oh, very
Oh,
dark.
some very dark things. Anyway,
Like
so
break people's necks with,
like break people's necks
yeah,
with
carrots and
peppers and
peppers.
carrots.
Yeah.
Um, in Yes, but Kit and Valentina, played by Alex White and Tiffany Clare, the award-winning Tiffany Clare, um, are much more important characters, and we also introduce some more of the Varian Israel and Wren's contemporaries in the Dex military. So there'll be much more of Raya, who was in season 1, who's our kind of intrepid pilot character, but also new soldier characters that you will love. So yes, that's probably doesn't give that much away, I don't think.
No, I think, yeah,
There
it's
must be more we can give away.
more violence, more tension, more characters, more political intrigue,
Mm.
and more dark humor.
Mm.
Lots of
I
dark
think
humor. And
one
actually, it's
thing. Go on.
oh, okay, I was just gonna say, like, the season 1 spans a few months, I would say, like, a couple of months. Season 2 spans about a week,
Mhm.
maybe a week and a half. So a lot is packed into a very short amount of time, which I think adds to the tension, because if so much is happening in a short amount of time, you know that there's a lot going on, and it's tense for everybody.
Mm.
So yeah, if that's an indication without ruining it.
I think one thing that I mean, it's probably worth saying, with any series drama, you do inevitably spend a lot of time introducing your listeners to characters, situations, nations, and politics. When you've done that, you've done all that, kind of dug all those foundations, then you can start to really play with it. So it's like you've built your train set, and then you can kind of knock yourself out running trains around it, which is an analogy that Emily would never have used, but
Yeah,
I would.
that's fair.
That's true. I wouldn't have used that.
That is true. I would never have used the train set analogy.
So, in order to enable us to see these figurative trains going around this set,
Thank you,
we
Frasier.
need. It's all right. I'll go along with it. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's no, I'm excited about season 2. Really excited about it with what it, because it has so much to build from, and it is. Yeah, I have no doubt it's going to be brilliant. But you've got a Kickstarter, which is currently happening as of the time of this recording. You are very close to getting it funded, um, and you've got stretch goals beyond getting it funded, which would be really, really good if you could reach those.
Mm.
Was it fun coming up with the rewards for backers and people who would pledge? How much fun was that process?
It was
Chris,
a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I didn't do a huge amount of it. So one of the things that we have, which I am really, really excited by, is that we have a season 1 script book. So it's all the scripts from season 1 plus a commentary from Emily and myself, mostly Emily actually. The odd pithy analogy about breaking carrots and asking about military bands from me,
but no
which
train sets. I would
no
like
trains
to
actually,
put
no
that on
train sets
record.
at all.
No train
No,
sets in the book.
no, or any other kind of model transport type analogies. But it is going to be great, because it's also, we are very self-deprecating within this book, and I think we both realized as we were doing the bits that weren't the actual scripts for the book, what we were actually doing was in many ways a guide as to how not to make an audio drama. So all the lessons we learnt about, God, I wish we'd not done it that way, are in there. So it's no holds barred, and it will be funny. But also, if you're making an audio drama, or if you've ever thought about writing an audio drama, even if you actually don't particularly like the Dex Legacy, I think there'll be stuff in there. How could people
Yeah,
not like the Dex Legacy? There'll be stuff in there that will be useful to you. So insight into the writing process, insight into directing. We've got little snippets about the characters, stuff about the Inkpen process, which is probably too detailed to go into now, but we have a process called the Inkpen process, which is about directing actors. So
Yeah.
all of that stuff in the book, and so lots of people who are contributing will be in tears that they will get a signed copy of the book, and signed by as many of the actors as well as just Emily. But it's really, I mean, it's fantastic for me, and I know for you, Frasier, as fans of Emily's work, we will actually see a book with Emily Inkpen on the front cover, not a picture of Emily, but the name Emily Inkpen on the cover, which is really exciting, having been such a fan of her work for a while.
My first book. It's gonna be so weird.
Mm.
Yeah. It is exciting though. I mean, it is like you just said. I mean, all of the sort of the stuff. It would be really useful for somebody who's thinking of making an audio drama, I think, because it is just the whole journey. And yeah, I sort of intersperse when you're reading the script, it's broken up by relevant bits. It's sort of like if you've ever watched a director's commentary on a movie or something, a bit comes up and then the director will be talking over it as the scene unfolds. So scene is unfolding and then there'll be a break with commentary. Normally, top tip: when you're approaching a problem like this, you should probably consider, XYZ. Otherwise, you'll end up with what we ended up with, which was 1, 2, 3 instead. And so maybe, think about that in advance, and then the script continues. So it really does sort of tell the story all the way through. And there's even a bit where I'm like, where I say that. It was easier for me to write the scene initially as prose and then to turn it into the script. And I've got the prose version there and then the script version. So you can see the sort of writing process that happened in order to get to the scene that we got to, that works and that says all we need to say just in dialogue alone. So yeah, really, I think very useful, but also, yeah, very, very honest. And yeah, like I can't wait for people to sort of be able to have it and read it. Really, it's
Mm.
exciting.
I think that the Kickstarter also has some. I think the idea was it was a combination of things that you could read, hold, wear, stick on your fridge, and things that were experiences. So we've got the chance to sponsor one of our actors, for example, the chance to sponsor an episode, the chance to join our launch party via Zoom, the chance to have a one-to-one Q&A session with Emily and myself. So yeah, a combination of things and experiences, which I think makes quite a good set of rewards on a Kickstarter, actually.
So, for anybody who's listening to that and thinking, "Oh, I want to get in to help to make this happen," how can they find you on Kickstarter, and where can they find the Dex Legacy online?
Well, actually, that's a good path. You can find the Dex Legacy at the website www.thedexlegacy.com. On that website, there's direct links at the very top of the homepage to all of the platforms you can listen to the audio drama. And directly below those, there is a link to the Kickstarter. And so, literally, top of the homepage, before you get to anything else, how you listen to it and how you help fund season 2. Otherwise, you can go onto Kickstarter and just search the Dex Legacy, and we're there as well. There's no other podcast looking for funding called the Dex Legacy. It's just us. And yeah, we do all sorts of updates. So we've got another update coming where Alan Stroud, our composer, is been dropping new tracks for the show, and we're going to be linking to another one of his tracks tomorrow, I think. And
Which will
sharing
be
it
in the
with
past
people,
when this comes out.
which will be in the past. Yes,
Yeah.
sorry, it will already be on the page
It's
retrospectively.
coming out
And
5 days ago.
Yeah.
Fraser
So
gets what
it
I mean
sounds
on
like
that.
new yesterday.
Yeah.
Exactly. What's he
Retrograding. Yeah.
retrograding
Yeah.
here. We are retrograding, and yes, that update is now live for you, and you can go on there and just listen to the music as well. And yeah,
Mm. And if you want to listen to the podcast, just whatever your favorite podcast player is, just go in and type the Dex Legacy, and you will find us. Just make sure you listen in the right order, really, because otherwise it will make no sense whatsoever.
And for everybody who has enjoyed listening to this and watching it and wants to connect with you, just share your socials, where they can find you, how they can reach out and say the Dex Legacy is awesome. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Well, I
So
mean, if they want to say it's awesome, then I would direct them to at the Dex Legacy on Twitter and at the Dex Legacy 1 on Instagram.
Yeah.
And there's Facebook as well, isn't there?
There is Facebook, yes. The Dex Legacy Facebook page that you can definitely find. I post updates to there sporadically. And also you can follow me as an author at Emily Inkpen on all of the social channels. I'm very boring. It's just at Emily Inkpen. So go on anywhere and you'll find me, really. And I've got the same profile picture everywhere as well because I do branding. So you'll recognize me wherever I am. I'm on YouTube as well. I do YouTube stuff occasionally. So yeah, you can even find me there at Emily Inkpen.
And what about you, Chris? Where can people find you?
Yeah, well, so I go by the name of my production company, which is Alternative Stories. So on Twitter, I'm at storiesalt, and on Instagram, I'm at stories.alt. And yes, so that's me. So you can also listen to my other podcast, or one of my other podcasts, which is Alternative Stories and Fake Realities, where you'll find things like Postcards from Another World and a recent interview with someone called Frasier Armitage.
I love it. I love it. I love how it feels so meta. That's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're here at FanFiAddict. Emily, Chris, I wish you all the best with your Kickstarter and cannot wait for season 2. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Frasier.
you so much for having us.